This conference will now be recorded.
At least put chat box between.
Okay, who is the class here? Can you hear me? Can you people hear me?
Ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Kindly place your evidence in the chat box.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Some of your friends will join, or shall I start the class now?
Wait for 2 minutes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. In the meanwhile, just type your attendance in the chat box.
Okay.
Okay, shall I start now?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Am I clearly audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Okay, today our topic is burns. Burn injuries can vary from small wounds that can be managed in the OP clinics to injuries that result in multi-organ system failure. Burn injuries most commonly occur in very young and old age people. In children, the most common burns are due to scald burns, which is due to touching the hot pans or hot water. In adults, most commonly electrical and chemical injuries occur. So, what is the classification and types of burns? Coming to types of burns, that is thermal injuries, electrical injuries, chemical injury, cold injury, ionizing injury, sunburns. Under thermal injury, it can be either due to due to spillage of hot liquids causing scalds, due to contact of fire, that is flame burns. Flash burns is due to contact with combustible liquids or natural gases. Contact burns with contact due to hot metals or objects. So how is this burns classified? So whenever you see a burns patient, first thing you have to do is classification of the burns, whether it is a first degree burn or a second degree or a third degree or a fourth degree. So first degree burns involve only epidermis. Second degree is again divided into superficial and deep. Superficial is injury to the epidermis up till the papillary dermis. Deep will be till the reticular dermis. Third degree is injury to subcutaneous fat. Fourth degree involves underlying muscles also. So you all know epidermis, and these are the 5 layers of epidermis. So first degree is up till here, that is epidermis. Second degree is dermis. Under second degree, superficial is up till papillary. Deep is reticular. Third degree is subcutaneous tissue. Beyond this is muscles or bone that involves the fourth degree. The same in this pictorial diagram. Epidermis is first degree, uptil papillary is superficial second degree, reticular is deep second degree, third degree is subcutaneous tissue, beneath this is fourth degree burns. So the effect of burns explains intensity of the duration of the exposure of the patient to the burns and type of tissue injury. So we will have a brief description according to each degree of burns. Coming to first degree burn. First degree burn involves only the epidermis. It is red and painful. There will be no blisters, no edema, shows capillary filling, heals rapidly in 5 to 7 days by epithelialization without any scarring. Coming to second degree burn. Second degree burn, superficial partial thickness burns involves papillary dermis only. Blisters will be present here. Blanching will be present. Moist skin, pinprick sensation will be present. Heals without scarring in 2 weeks. If deep partial thickness, then involves uptilly reticular dermis. It does not blanch. Sensations are decreased. Pinprick sensation will be present. Heals with hypertrophic scar in 3 or more weeks. Next is the third degree burns. Here, whole of the dermis in the subcutaneous fat is involved. Hard and leathery feel will be present. Charred black, no blanching, no capillary return, completely anesthetized. Heals by re-epithelialization from the edges of the wound. Coming to fourth degree, it involves underlying tissues like muscles and bones. You can see the image here. The same in the pictorial representation. First degree, second degree, third degree. You can see here the involvement. So, how do you assess the burns? Burn size need to be assessed in a controlled environment. Area should be exposed. Any soot or debris must be removed and washed off. Care should be taken not to cause hypothermia. To prevent the lethal triad. So, based on the size, if larger burns, draw the burn on the London Browder chart, which maps out the percentage of the total body surface area involved. Chart is based on the age of the patient and it's the most accurate method. In smaller burns, you can compare with the patient hand, estimate with the patient hand. The patient's hand represents approximately 1% of total body surface area, and total burn size can be estimated by determining how much of the patient's hand is burned. Next is the rule of 9. Wallace rule of 9. It is most commonly used method and it is used as a guide to assess the total body surface area outside the hospital management. Even we also use this Wallace rule of 9 only frequently. This is the London Browder chart. It will be difficult to remember this one. You can remember this Wallace rule of 9. So under this is also different for the adults and the children. Here, head and neck involves 9%, front of the chest is 18%, back is 18%, right whole limb, the upper limb is 9% and the left is 9%. Both limbs, lower limb constitutes each about 18% and the perineum is 1%. Coming to children, in adults, head is only 9%, but in children, it constitutes of about 18%. The rest will be remaining same, but each leg involves 13.5% only. So based on the depth of the burn is dependent on the temperature, time and burning material. So 65 degrees Celsius, if we come into contact with the in 45 seconds, then full thickness burn will be occurring. In 15 seconds, then deep thickness burns occur. If we come into contact only for 7 seconds, then superficial thickness burn occur. So time of contact is also very important. We will see the cause of the burn and the probable depth of the burn. In scalds, usually superficial burns occur. In fat burns are usually deep dermal burns. Plain burns, mixed deep dermal and full thickness burns occur. In alkali burns, full thickness burns occur. Acid burns, weak acids constitute superficial. If strong acid, then deep dermal burns occur. Electrical contact burn, full thickness burns occur. Alkalis are more dangerous than acid burns. So coming to clinical features. So every burn patient tells us a history of the burn. There will be pain, burning sensation, tachycardia, tachypnea, fluid loss will be present. Severe hypovolemia, patient present with severe hypovolemia. In severe degrees, patient features of shock are present, hypovolemia. Coming to pathophysiology, burn injury can damage in number of ways, either airway, lungs, or skin. We will see each in detail. So, injury to airways and lungs. Injury to airway above larynx. Hot gases burn the nose, mouth, tongue, and palate, which starts to swell and interfere with the airway. The linings of these structures start to swell. Injury to airway below the larynx. Steam got larger latent heat of vapor, and thus it traveled down and caused damage to lower airway by injury to respiratory epithelium, which detaches and forms cast, causing blockade of the airway. When we see this patient, we have to immediately secure the airway by intubating the patient. So you can see here all edema. Coming to metabolic poisoning, there are many poisonous gases given off in the fire. Most common is CO, a product of incomplete combustion that is often produced by fires in enclosed spaces. The person is found with altered consciousness at the scene of the fire. Carbon monoxide has more affinity to oxygen, that is to hemoglobin than oxygen, that is 240 times greater. So carboxyhemoglobin concentrations greater than 10% are dangerous, and this needs immediate treatment with pure oxygen more than 24 hours. Death occurs with concentration above 60%. Another metabolic toxin produced in house fire is hydrogen cyanide, which causes a metabolic acidosis by interfering with mitochondrial respiration. Coming to inhalational injuries, inhalation of thick smoke usually have smaller particles which easily travel down and attaches in the alveoli. Thus, impairment to the gaseous exchange occurs, and this leads to respiratory failure. Next is mechanical block on rib movements. Due to formation of eschar, this blocks the movement of ribs. Immediate eschorotomy should be done in these cases. So what happens with the inflammation and circulatory changes? The activation occurs because burned skin activates a web of inflammatory cascades. These release of neuropeptides and the activation of complement are initiated by this pain fiber stimulation and alteration of proteins by heat. The activation of H1 factor initiates a number of protease-derived cascades altering the arachidonic acid, thrombin, and kallikrein pathways. So at the cellular level, the complement causes the degranulation of mast cells and coats the proteins altered by the burn. This attracts neutrophils, which also degranulate with the release of large quantities of free radicals and proteases. These can in turn cause further damage to the tissues. Mast cells also release primary cytokines such as tumor necrosis factor alpha. These act as chemotactic agents to inflammatory cells and cause the subsequent release of many secondary cytokines. These inflammatory factors alter the permeability of the blood vessels such that intravascular fluid escapes. The increase in the permeability is such that large protein molecules can now also escape with ease. So the damaged collagen and these extravascular proteins increase the oncotic pressure within the burn tissue, further increasing the flow of water from the intravascular compartment to the extravascular compartment. So the overall effect of these changes is to produce a net flow of water, solutes, and proteins from the intravascular compartment to extravascular space. This flow occurs over the first 36 hours after the injury but does not include RBCs. In case of a small burn, the reaction is small and localized, but as the burn size approaches to 10 to 15% of the total body surface area, the loss of intravascular fluid can cause a level of circulatory shock. You can see the image here. So, other life-threatening events with major burns. The immune system and infection. Cell-mediated immunity is significantly reduced in larger burns, leaving them more susceptible to infections, bacterial and fungal infections, like Pseudomonas, etc. There are many potential sources of infections, not only through the wound, but also from the lung if this is injured, but also from any central venous lines or tracheostomies or Foley's catheterization. So infection can occur from either any route. So what happens to the intestine? This inflammatory stimulus and shock causes the microvascular damage and ischemia to the gut mucosa. This reduces gut motility and can prevent the absorption of food. Failure of enteral feeding in a patient with a large burn is a life-threatening complication. This process also increases the translocation of the bacteria from the gut lumen through the mucosa, which becomes an important source of infection in large burns. Gut mucosal swellings, gastric stasis, and the peritoneal edema can also cause abdominal compartment syndrome, which splints the diaphragm and increases the airway pressures needed for the respiration. So, what happens in the peripheral circulation? In full thickness burns, the collagen fibers are coagulated. The normal elasticity of the skin is lost. The circumferential full thickness burn to a limb acts as a tourniquet as the limb swells. If untreated, this will lead to ischemia. So, zones of burns. Burn injury causes three zones. The first is the zone of coagulation, where there is a direct contact with the burns and the tissue is completely damaged in this zone. Coming to zone of stasis, here the tissue is also damaged, but inflammatory mediators are released from this zone. In case of zone of hyperemia, there will be vasodilation and this tissue is less susceptible to damage. Coming to pathophysiology, you can remember this image so that in exams it will be easy for you to write. This flowchart will be very useful for you. So heat causes coagulation, necrosis of the skin and subcutaneous tissue, which release vasoactive peptides. There will be altered capillary permeability. Due to this, loss of fluid from intravascular compartment to extravascular compartment occurs. This causes severe hypovolemia, which leads to decreased cardiac output, which further leads to decreased myocardial function. This cardiac output decrease leads to decreased renal flow due to renin-angiotensin system activation, which further causes oliguria. This cardiac output decrease also causes altered pulmonary resistance, causing pulmonary edema, which leads to further infection. This leads to systemic inflammatory response syndrome. Finally, multi-organ dysfunction syndrome occurs. So how do you manage a case of burns? So in case of burns, there will be pre-hospital care and hospital care. So pre-hospital care, ensure rescuer safety first. Stop the burning process by stop, drop and roll. So we have to make sure that we secure standard airway, breathing and circulation. Cool the burn wound by running tap water for 10 minutes within 1 hour of burn injury. Supply oxygen. We have to elevate the head with burned airway, because it is life-saving process. Elevation of the limb should be done to reduce swelling and discomfort. So who are the patients that should be admitted in the hospital? What is the criteria? So if you suspect any airway or inhalational injury, any burn likely to require fluid resuscitation, any burn likely to require surgery, patients with burns of any significance to the hand, feet, face or perineum, patients whose psychiatric or social background makes it inadvisable to send them home, any suspicion of non-accidental injury, any burn in a patient at extremes of age, any burn with associated potential serious sequelae, including high tension electrical burns and concentrated hydrofluoric acid burns. So if you encounter all this, if you encounter these criteria, then you have to admit the patient. So what is the hospital care? Any case of burns or any form of case which arises to your casualty, you should be doing two things. That is, first is the primary survey and the next is the secondary survey. Under the primary survey, any emergency case should be taken care of A, B, C, D, E, F. A comes airway control, B is breathing and ventilation, C is circulation, D is disability, E is exposure. In case of burns, F is fluid resuscitation. In some cases like cardiac cases, C comes first. So C, A, B. So after you secure this, we have to evaluate the percentage of burns. On arrival, a thorough evaluation is performed and a treatment plan is developed. Burn patients are trauma patients and they require ATLS, that is Advanced Trauma Life Support Protocol. Airway, breathing and circulation are assessed immediately following the burn injury. In addition to ensuring a patient airway, adequate breathing and circulation, the presence of additional injuries, particularly life-threatening injuries, should be excluded. So next we have to take a proper history of the patient. Following the initial resuscitation, a detailed history of the burn should be taken as it may provide important information that will affect management. It includes location of the injury, type of liquid involved in a skull burn, duration of extraction from the fire, details of the patient's other medical problems or comorbidities. Next, examine the patient. We have to determine the burn's extent and the depth of the burn injury. Wallace rule of 9. So most important in burns is fluid resuscitation. So what is the principle? To maintain intravenous volume, as we have already previously seen in pathophysiology, there will be shift of fluid from the intravascular compartment to the extravascular compartment. So to maintain this intravascular volume, we have to give necessary fluid resuscitation. So fluid resuscitation provides adequate replacement for fluid lost to the skin, fluid lost into the interstitium from the systemic capillary leak that occurs in part of the body's inflammatory response. In children with burns over 10% and in adults over 15%, fluid resuscitation is needed. If we advise oral fluids, then salt must be added in this. So how do you resuscitate? Crystalloids and colloids. Coming to crystalloids. Fluid administered should be ringer lactate. Ringer lactate is relatively hypotonic and contains sodium, potassium, calcium chloride, and lactate. Crystalloids are used effectively to maintain IV volume. In children, normally dextrosaline is given as 100 ml per kg for 24 hours for first 10 kgs. For next 10 kgs, 50 ml per kg and 20 ml per kg for 24 hours for each kg over 20 kilograms body weight. This is the formula for the children. And there are some formulas, that is Parkland formula. You have to remember this because we follow this in our casualties. Most commonly used formula to calculate amount of fluid to be replaced. 4 ml into weight in kilograms into total body surface area percentage. Maximum percentage considered is 50%. Half the volume is given in first 6 hours. Remaining half is given in the next 16 hours. Some of the other formulas are the Galveston formula uses 5000 ml per total body surface area burned plus 1500 ml per meter square total for maintenance in the first 24 hours. This formula accounts for maintenance needs and the increased fluid requirements of the children with the burn. So we have to follow this in cases of children. Next is the colloid. The use of colloid has the advantage of increasing the intravascular oncotic pressure, which could minimize the capillary leak and potentially draw fluid back intravascularly from the interstitial space. So most common colloid we use is albumin. The most common colloid-based formula is Muir-Berkeley formula. Here we see 0.5 into percentage of body surface area burnt into weight is calculated as one portion. So 3 portions is given in the first 12 hours, 2 portions in the second 12 hours, and 1 portion in the third 12 hours. The same here represented. Parkland, Galveston, and Cook. So how do you monitor the resuscitation? So you're giving the fluid. So how do you monitor the response? The key for monitoring response is urine output. It is done to check whether adequate fluid is given or not. So as we already placed Colles catheter in the casualties, we have to monitor the urine output. Urine output should be 0.5 to 1 ml per kg body weight. and it should not exceed more than 2 ml per kg. So coming to the local side, so what we have to do on the burn side? Topical agents. Initially dressings with non-adherent material like Vaseline impregnated gauze or Mepitil and left for 5 days, which will heal after 7 to 10 days. Silver sulfadiazine is most commonly used dressing, but this is contraindicated in pregnant women, nursing mothers, and infants less than 2 months, as there is increased probability of carditis. So, in minor burn wound, what is the aim? Aim is to decrease the pain and to protect and isolate the burn. Bulking of the wound dressing wound depends on the amount of discharge. There are also synthetic wound dressings. These are used to decrease pain associated with the dressings. They improve healing, decrease the OP appointments, and there will be overall low cost. BioGrade, that is a bilamellar dressing done in cases of burns which are fresh sensate, show capillary blanching and refill, removal of all blisters. It is impervious to gases but not to fluids and bacteria. Hence check it 48 hours for adherence and infection. This is BioGrade. Next, we have to give TT prophylaxis to the patient. That is 0.5 ml tetanus toxoid should be given. So how do you treat a burn? If there is eschar, eschorotomy should be done. Full thickness burns and obvious deep dermal burns, there will be eschar formation. So eschorotomy is indicated here. And in some cases of superficial partial thickness wounds and mixed depth wounds also, eschar will be formed. So how do you perform an eschorotomy? The eschar of a full thickness burn can form a constricting band and comprises the limb perfusion. This may lead to limb ischemia further. Eschorotomy is indicated for full thickness circumferential burns of the extremity. Adequate release occurs when the eschar perfusion improves. The burn needs to be clean, size and depth needs to be assessed. So the depth of the burn should be calculated every day. Further thickness burns and deep partial burns require operative treatment, need to be dressed with antibacterial dressings to delay colonization of bacteria. This should be done in mid-axial plane to avoid major nerve injuries. Eschorotomy can cause large amount of blood loss, hence adequate blood should be kept available for transfusion. In upper limb, mid-axial, anterior to the elbow, medially to avoid the ulnar nerve injury. This is the incision lines for the eschorotomy. Hand, midline in the digits, release muscle compartments if tight, best done in theatre and with an experienced surgeon. In case of lower limb, mid-axial, posterior to the ankle, medially to avoid the Sefton's vein. In case of chest, down the chest, lateral to the nipples, across the chest, below the clavicles and across the chest at the level of digisternum. General rules are extend the wound beyond the deep burn diathermy. Any significant bleeding, you have to take hemostasis and elevate the limb post-operatively. These are the incision lines. Remember this. This one, and the inverted Y shape. Some of the images. If we don't release this one, then as we have previously seen, this even causes rib compression. So coming to topical antibiotics. Topical antibiotics are divided into two, that is salves and soaps. So what are the salves? These are applied directly to the wound with cotton dressing over them. Some disadvantages of the salves are applied once or twice a day, but may lose their effectiveness between dressing changes. So salves should be applied with change of the dressings. So loss of grafts or loss of underlying healing cells due to frequent changes. Examples are 1% silver sulfadiazine, 11% mefinide acetate, polymyxin B, neomycin, pacitrazine, mifepristone, and nystatin. Soaps are, in case of soaps, we don't need to change the dressings frequently. We can pour into the cotton dressings on the wound. The soaps can be applied with the intact wound dressing only. Effective because solution is added without removal of the dressings. Disadvantages are underlying maceration of the skin cannot be assessed easily. Examples are 0.5% silver nitrate, 0.025% silver hypochlorite, Dakin solution, 0.25% acetic acid, 5% solution of mefenic acetate. So in case of full thickness burns and with obvious deep dermal burns, you can do dressings with nanocrystalline silver or silver sulfadiazine cream. This is effective against Pseudomonas and methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Advantages are painless and easy to apply, high patient acceptance, broad spectrum of antimicrobial activity including gram-positive, gram-negative and some fungal forms. Disadvantages are may leave black tattoos from the silver ion, might inhibit epithelialization, transient leukopenia after 3 to 5 days of use. It is generally harmless and resolves with or without treatment. Sedation does not penetrate eschar. Coming to mefenide acetate cream, this is also useful against Pseudomonas and Enterococcus infection. Advantages are this can penetrate eschar, broad spectrum and microbial activity. Disadvantages are may cause pain and insensate skin. Metabolic acidosis due to inhibition of carbonic anhydrase, hence used in small partial thickness burns, mild inhibition of epithelialization. Can also cause allergic rash. Coming to silver nitrate solution, 0.5%. Effective against Pseudomonas. It is less effective than silver sulfadiazine cream. It needs to be changed or wounds re-soaked for every 2 to 4 hours. Advantages are painless on application, but the most disadvantage is stains the surfaces due to dull gray or black when the solution dries. This causes problem in determining wound depth during excision. Methemoglobinemia, itching, continuous use causes sodium leaching from the wounds. A new commercial resin containing biologically potent silver ions that are activated in the presence of moisture is available. These resins hold the promise of retaining the effectiveness of silver nitrate without any problems. Cerium nitrate. This is especially used for full thickness burns. Cerium nitrate forms a sterile eschar and boosts cell-mediated immunity. Next is Dakin solution. This is effective against all microbes, particularly gram-positive, but mildly inhibits epithelialization. So what do we do with the superficial partial thickness wounds and mixed burns? Superficial dressings will heal and need simple dressings. They heal irrespective of the dressing. Dressing must be easy to apply, non-painful, reduce pain, simple to manage and locally available. The choice of dressing can make the difference between scar and no scar and operation or no operation. So dressings also plays a major important role. Options for dressings. Permeable wound dressings like Mefix or Pixamol, Vaseline impregnated gauzes can be used. Fenestrated silicone sheet material, Mepital. These are backed with straps to absorb exudate. Next most common dressing is hydrocolloid dressing, which has promissory results. This is used in case of mixed burns as the high protease levels aids in the debridement of deeper areas of burns, provides moisture environment for epithelialization. This is changed every 3 to 5 days. So Deoderm is a hydrocolloid dressing. Biological or synthetic, that is BioBrain, which are previously seen, and natural, that is amniotic membrane, provide good healing, especially in superficial partial thickness burns. So you can see here, this is this scald to the chest from a boiling water. On subsequent dressings with hydrocolloid, you can see very minimal scar. So, treatment of the burn patients. Analgesia plays a very important role in case of treatment of the burns patient. In acute cases, for superficial burns, you can give either simple oral analgesics is enough. In case of large burns, IV opiates should be given. IM injections are usually avoided. In case of subacute burns, large burns, continuous analgesia beginning with infusions and continuing with oral tablets like slow release morphine. Before dressings, better to give analgesia. So next important is energy balance and nutrition. So burn patient needs extra feeding. Hypermetabolism and hypercatabolism both occur following burn injury. Feeding should start within 6 hours of injury to reduce mucosal damage. Nasogastric tube should be used in all patients with burns over 15% of total body surface area. Removing the burns and achieving healing stops catabolic drive. So next we have to monitor and control the infection. Patients with burns have large and portal entry to pathogenic and opportunistic bacteria and fungi. We have already previously seen the routes of entry. These makes them immunocompromised. So compromised local defenses in lungs and gut are due to edema. We have to monitor the lines, central lines or peripheral lines or catheters. A rise in the WBC count and increased catabolism are warning signs of infection. Sterile precautions must be rigorous. Swabs are taken regularly and antibiotics should be started. So other cases are the nursing care. Burns require intensive nursing care. Nurses are the primary effectors of many decisions that directly affect healing. Next is physiotherapy. Most common complication with burns is contractures. So early physiotherapy is very much important. So we have to elevate linkage and exercise, reduce swelling and improve the final outcome. Physiotherapy needs to be started on day one and massage can be reinforced on daily basis. Next is psychological. So psychologically, this patient will be very depressive. So we have to give psychological support to these patients. These are normal and usually self-limiting, receding as patient heals. The features of these intensity of experience are of intrusive reactions, arousal reactions, and avoidance reactions. So surgery for acute burnout. Any deep partial thickness and full thickness burns, except those less than 4 centimeters square, need surgery. Any burns of indeterminate depth reassessed after 4 hours because burns that initially appear superficial may deepen after some time. That's why I already previously told you depth of the burn should not be assessed only during the casualty but daily depth should be assessed. These delayed microvascular injury are common in the cardiacs. So what are the essence of burn surgery? Usually a cannula for circulation, BP monitoring, a large excision is considered. If large excision is needed, then arterial line for BP monitoring, CBP monitoring, central venous pressure monitoring, acid-base balance should be done. Clotting time, HP levels, and temperature should not be less than 36 degrees Celsius. So prevent hypothermia to prevent lethal triad. For most burns excision, control of bleeding is very important. Subcutaneous injection of adrenaline can be given, diluted adrenaline can be given. Tourniquet can also be used for control of bleeding. For deep dermal burns, tangential excision can be done until we see the fresh bleeding. Next, for full thickness burns, excision of the skin using a Watson or power dermatome can be done. Later, when the wound is healed or when the wound is active with no infection, then skin graft can be applied. Larger burns, synthetic dermis or homograft as a temporary stable coverage can also be done. This is the full thickness. So facial excision. This is used in burns extending down through the fat into the muscle, large infection wound, life-threatening invasive fungal infection using Gaulian knife and number 11 blades up to fascia. This leaves a permanent contour defect that is impossible to reconstruct. In this case, lymph channels will also be damaged, hence lymphedema is most common. So, after we secure the wound, when the wound is healing, then what should we do with the wound coverage? We can place an autograft, an endograft, or a xenograft. It can be biological and synthetic. So, autograft is taken from an uninjured skin. It is difficult when full thickness burns exceed 40% of total body surface area. In case of allograft, we can either take homograft or cadaver skin. completely provides all the normal function of skin, can leave a dermal equivalent. Xenograft is can be taken from pig skin, used for temporary replacement, completely closes the wound, provides some immunological benefits. So synthetic substrates, Integra, oxide, transite, and BioBrain, we have already previously seen this, are commonly used. Cultured epithelial autografts can also be used for this grafts. Autologous epithelial cells grown from a single full thickness skin biopsy specimen have been available. Disadvantages are poor long-term clinical results, exorbitant cost, fragility, difficult handling. Epithelial autografts used in combination with wide mesh autograft and allograft overlay in children with burns of 90% total body surface area. This has improved cosmetic results. So this is the wound bed, meshed autograph, and overlaying this 2:1 meshed allograft is placed. Skin graft classes have been taken for you. Can you hear me? Anyone of you kindly respond? Can you hear me? Skin grafting has been taken for you, class. Yes or no? Okay, fine. Okay, let me complete this first. So post-operatively, fluid balance, levels of hemoglobins, dressings changed on regular basis to prevent infection, elevation of the limbs, physiotherapy and splints for range of movements and reducing joint contractures, splints, hand splints in a position of function after grafting. Knee should be placed in extension, axilla should be placed in erection. What are the complications? Ectropion of eyelids causing keratitis and corneal ulcer, disfigurement of face, narrowing of mouth which leads to microstomia, contracture in neck causing restricted neck movements, disability and non-functioning of joints due to contracture, hypertrophic scar and keloid formation, repeated breaking of the scar and infection, ulcer, cellulitis, pain and tenderness in the scar contracture, Marjolin ulcer that is well differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. Prolonged burns can lead to Marjolin ulcer. Thank you. Who is a class here?
Ma'am.
Okay. Skin graft class has been over for you.
Yes, ma'am. Completed, ma'am.
Completed. Okay, fine. Everyone has given you attendance in this card box.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then fine. Thanks.